I want to welcome all of you to this interview, and in particular to welcome you to Access to Justice Week in British Columbia, the week of January 25, proclaimed as a special week by the Lieutenant Governor of our province. I want to make an exciting announcement. Access to Justice BC, which I have the privilege of chairing, has taken a leadership role in developing and laying the foundations for hosting a cross-sector collaboration aimed at transforming the family justice system. The focus won't be the traditional courts, lawyers, and government agencies that traditionally center our efforts on family justice, but rather, more importantly, we're focusing on the family. And there, we're focusing on the well-being of families. Nancy Cameron is with me today. Nancy Cameron Q.C. is a longtime family law collaborative lawyer, a mediator, and a thought leader. And she's spoken on a number of occasions, most recently to the National Association on Access to Justice initiatives. And she's inspired all of us with her views in this area. Nancy, welcome. And I wonder if you'll take my questions.
Thank you. I'd be honored to, Chief, and thank you for that kind introduction and for including me in Access to Justice Week.
Let's begin by just telling us why the focus on family well-being. What's the aim there?
Well, you know, our current justice system was never designed for what's really a unique combination of complex and profoundly human issues that come to the fore when couples separate or divorce, nor was it designed for the really life-altering issues that we see in our child protection matters. Separation and divorce and child protection were really shoehorned into an existing adversarial system. This is a system that's based on the premise that two equally skilled advocates presenting evidence and arguing in front of a neutral judge can come up with the right outcome. Unfortunately, that's not the case for family matters. If we had to create a system that has family well-being at its center, we would never have devised a system like we have now. But this is what we have. And so our task really is to transform the current system so that family well-being is at the center, as opposed to a system that escalates conflict and creates winners and losers. And I just want to say, since we're kicking off Access to Justice Week, that added to these current problems, the system is inaccessible to many because it's been designed with lawyers as the operative players, and it's been put out of reach for many people who are then forced to self-represent. And self-representation comes with a diverse set of problems of its own. The rules are complex. Many of the things we think of as rules are norms, so they're not written down. So we essentially end up with two classes of participants in the system: lawyers who are trained in both the written and unwritten rules, and self-represented litigants who the system was never designed to serve. And I think we actually have to acknowledge that there's a third class of people. And those are the ones who have a legal problem but never seek a remedy because they see the system as inaccessible or not responsive to their needs. So if we want to focus on family well-being, we have to really think about what will it look like. And I think what we need to do is first acknowledge that our current system doesn't put family well-being at its core. Second, we need to draw on the tremendous amount of research that's available to us to create an evidence-based system that does put family well-being at its core. And thirdly, we need to commit and have an intention to start that journey of transformation.
Yeah, Nancy, it doesn't sound like you're talking about fine-tuning the existing system or looking for incremental change. It sounds like you're advocating for transformative change in the system. Is that fair?
That is definitely fair to say. The justice system is very good at incremental change. We're comfortable with our status quo. And so we've always tended to react. And because we tend to react with incremental change, we tend to be very, very behind what's actually needed for families.
So what are some of the particular challenges you see it sounds like a daunting task, but what do you see as the major challenges facing a transformative change in the system?
Well, I think that one of our challenges is that we are really locked into our status quo. And so as lawyers, we find it hard. As justice system providers, we don't tend to be innovative or creative. We're very good at making rules and applying them. We're good at taking complex problems and distilling them into legal issues. But what happens when we do that is we ignore all the other issues, the deeply human component, the social and relationship issues, which are all intricately entwined. And these are the issues that really define family well-being. We have another big problem because we operate in silos. We have family court, we have institutions and services that support mental health, we have financial counseling services, we have services that support children, we have educational resources. Sometimes criminal court becomes another silo in the family justice system. Schools and school counselors, peer support groups in the schools are available. It's not that we have a lack of resources, although we can always use more. But even those of us who've worked in this field for decades, we're not aware of all the relevant resources in our communities, and they're not integrated. So aligning them in a way that helps support the transformation of family justice systems is a huge challenge. And that's, I think, one of the places that we really need to start from is aligning these services. So identifying them and making certain they're aligned so that they all have the same goal of supporting family well-being. And I just want to say the other thing we need is courage. Courage isn't easy. You know, it's stressful times that we're living in, and the status quo is being challenged. And so to challenge it in another way at this time isn't particularly easy. But that's, I think, one of the things that is necessary at this time. And I actually congratulate you for taking leadership in this, especially when we don't know what the final outcome is going to look like.
You talk about us all operating in silos, and that's a complaint I've heard before. Believe me, I've heard it many times. And you talk about the need for alignment. It really sounds like you're looking at a holistic approach to the issues rather than the individual approaches we may have all taken in the past through our respective institutions.
Well, you know, one of the things that we have right now is we have the advantage of a tremendous amount of research about how our brain works. And we've learned that there are things like adverse childhood incidents, and those can actually have long-term traumatic effects, both on health and on well-being for children as they move into adults. So we've learned because of the way the brain works. We also know that stress can compromise our physical and our mental health. And so if we can take some of this evidence-based learning that we have and apply it to family well-being in the a cohesive, as you say, holistic system. But that evidence-based research isn't embedded in the court system, it's embedded in other places. And so it's partly bringing all those resources together, as you say, and aligning them.
Thank you. Well, you've talked about the challenges and you've talked about the need. What should we be telling young lawyers out there? What advice can you give them and those of us working in the system to advance these objectives?
You know, Elijah Cummings, who was a congressman in the United States who died last year, and he had this wonderful line, said, "Our children are our living messengers to a future we will never see." So for law students, I really want to say you are the future. And as scary as it might be going into a world with huge student debt when law is changing, law itself is changing, and you don't know what you'll do for a job, this is a time when you can actually be building your skills in dispute resolution. They're very important skills. You can be volunteering in areas that you're interested in. And this is also a time when you have the luxury of thinking deeply and thinking about the complexity of systems change. Also, I just want to say, don't be afraid of speaking up. Your voice is very important. Many of you have parents who have separated or divorced, and you can add to the voices of what it felt like if you were a child when that was happening, and bring that into focus so that we can take that into account when we're working on systems change.
Nancy, you've been very thoughtful as usual, provocative as well, but you've offered us a very positive view of what the future can hold. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Chief.